Money Talk Monday, episode number 6, where we try to get rid of the stigma of money by talking about money. Today, we're going to be taking a look at how to go ahead and pay yourself first. So, this is going to be a concept from Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, classic book. If you want to get into finance or anywhere with investing or anything like that, definitely check out this book if you haven't already. These are one of those books that I try to read every single year, not just because finance, but it's such a great book. So today we're going to be talking about paying yourself first and simply the power of self-discipline. I'm going to be sharing with you guys sort of the mindset when it comes to actually paying yourself first, not just saying I pay myself first, but actually paying yourself first and how to sort of deal with that. Because I know when you first hear about it, it can kind of like, what do you mean pay yourself first? Like you have bills to pay, you have all these other things to pay for. What are you talking about? All right, so with paying yourself first, pretty much want to go ahead and take a look at, well, I'm going to go ahead and quote from Rich Dad Poor Dad. So, if you're going to get control of yourself, do not try to get rich, right? It makes no sense to invest, make money, and blow it. It is the lack of self-discipline that causes most lottery winners to go broke soon after winning millions, which makes sense, right? We've seen stories where people go out, they make millions of dollars just given to them, and they end up declaring bankruptcy within like a year's time, even though they had millions and millions of dollars that they pretty much just won, again out of a lottery, out of just some, one in what 1,000 chance or 1 in 1 million chance. I have no idea how the lottery is, but like 1 in 1 million chance of winning the lottery. They won it and then they go bankrupt. So it's because they don't have this thing of the power of self-discipline. So that's why Robert Kiyosaki talks about the power of self-discipline through paying yourself first. And actually, this concept isn't even technically from Rich Dad Poor Dad. He just adds more color to it in his book. Originally, it's from The Richest Man in Babylon. So George S. something. I believe I have it here, but let me double check. Yeah, George Clason. Sorry, George Clason. So definitely go ahead and check that book out if you haven't already. You can also check it out on YouTube. They have the audiobook on YouTube, so you can just listen to that. And if you don't want to pay for the book, and I'm pretty sure you could probably even find like PDFs, like public PDFs as well. So the concept of paying yourself first. Well, uh, you want to go ahead and pretty much take management of three different things. So you want to go ahead and take management of your cash flow. So that's sort of what we discussed earlier, where you go ahead and get a paycheck. It's all about creating this habit of controlling your cash flow. You want to know where your money's going. You want to have a good management of people, because you want to be able to work and interact with people clearly and efficiently, right? You want people to understand, your intentions. You want to work well with people, so people respect you, and vice versa, right? And then you also want to be able to manage your personal time. And so, why do we want to manage our personal time? Well, because we want to be efficient with the time that we do have, right? We're all mere mortals, right? We're not going to live forever, sort of thing. So we only have a limited set of time. If you think about it, even, and let's say a ideal case, we live to be 100 years old. It's only 100 years. Like, there's no, hold up, let me pause time and go do something real quick and then continue time. Like, that's it. There's only 24 hours in a day. That's it. That's all the time we get ever. So there's no way to pause it. There's no way to reverse or fast forward, time travel, none of that. At least not yet. So that's why it's important to also be able to manage your personal time. So uh, every single hour, minute that you have is being done with intentions. So uh, and he says also, I would say the skills to manage these three apply to anything, not just entrepreneurs, which is also true, right? You want to pretty much incorporate some sort of self-discipline routine, whether you want to be just successful in life, not just in entrepreneurship, but in your career, your personal life, perhaps in relationships, things like that. You want to go ahead and be able to manage and have this self-discipline and really anything you want to go ahead and strive and go after it. So taking a look, he breaks it down into pretty much two different sections. You want to go ahead and keep the following in mind. So don't get into debt, into large debt positions that you have to pay for. Keep your expenses low. Build up your assets first. So remember, assets are just like these things that go ahead and generate money for you. Then buy the big house or nice car. Being stuck in the rat race is not intelligent. So don't get into large debt positions that you have to pay for. So what does this necessarily mean? Well, if you have credit cards with high interest rates, 10, 20, 25% interest rates, that means you're paying an extra 25% on top of the money you're already using on that credit card. You don't want to go ahead and put yourself in that position. So how do you do that? Well, keep your expenses low. Don't go out and try and buy all these extra things you don't really need. Right? That's how you pretty much keep your expenses low. Buy basic things like food, even rent. If you don't have to necessarily go ahead and purchase this big luxurious house when you're trying to build up your assets and pay yourself first, right? You want to go ahead and first, I mean, if you can, cut down even your assets, or not your assets, sorry, your rent, and see, okay, is there a more affordable way to go ahead and lower my rent? So if your rent is, let's say, $1,000, is there a way, I can cut it by half, and now it's $50 or $500 for rent, right? Well, you can go ahead and rent a room, look into renting rooms. That's something I did for years. You can also go ahead and look into, maybe you get a 2-bedroom place and rent out the second room, or things like that. Maybe you even rent a single room with like another person. I don't know, different things like that. Maybe you live with your family, with your parents, and you don't have to pay rent. So just try and think of different ways we can cut down on really any of your expenses, even with groceries. If you're looking more for just saving money, there's no shame in eating rice, potatoes, bread, some eggs, things like that, to cut down on expenses. That way, instead of spending, I don't know, $100, $200 per week or month or whatever you want to do with groceries, you can go ahead and just spend, like, I don't know. Like, I think a bag of rice is like $20. That'll last you a couple months, or at least a couple weeks. So it's like $20, let's say, for the month. So that cuts down costs quite a bit. So I think best way to not get into large debt positions is to first keep your expenses low. I know most people will be like, oh, I need to make more money, but it's like, well, no, just ideally don't get into large debt positions by not putting yourself in that position. Don't take out large amounts of debt. And then from there, increase your income, right? You want to go ahead and get a job and generate some sort of income. Uh, and so then from there, you want to buy the big house or nice car. So once you're making that income, because you have your debt's so low, and you have that income coming in, you can go ahead and use that income to buy more assets. So this thing with assets is like, just think of it as a machine that you can go ahead and have that generates additional money for you, where you don't have to go ahead and give up your direct time. When you go ahead and work, at a job, or any really job really, or career, any of that stuff, that's direct time that you have to give up to go ahead and get money back, in a sense. Whereas with assets, these sort of ideal machines that in a sense make us money, we don't have to be there once we've purchased the item, right? So when we go ahead and purchase, I don't know, a computer or a phone, once we do the purchase, it pretty much serves us for as long as we have it, sort of thing. So it's sort of the same idea. Let's say this asset costs you $1,000. Well, you pay $1,000. You have this machine thing that makes you, let's say, I don't know, $1 every week or something like that. It doesn't really matter. But you have this machine now that you can just pretty much leave up there, and it's making you money, whether you go work and trade your time directly for money, or whether you just decide to sit around. It's still going to go ahead and make you money. And the more machines or more of these assets you go ahead and decide to buy, or pretty much you would be investing in, is more time. And ideally, you're going to be saving yourself, because those different machines are going to go ahead and make more and more money, whether or not you decide to work or not. So that's really the main idea when you want to go ahead and pay yourself first. And then ideally, once from there, because you have your expenses super low, you're still having that nice income when you're working. Because when you start off, of course, you got to find work and make some sort of income. Think of yourself as a business, right? You have to sort of figure out how to make some sort of revenue. And how do you make revenue? Well, you got to increase your income and keep your expenses low. So you start off with that. Get a job. Don't go out and buy unnecessary things. Keep it as low as possible. Just paying rent and food. That's about it. Don't go out shopping. Don't go out trying to buy a nice car because I need a car. Like, there's no shame in. I mean, I've met people who have gone and they've taken the bus for like 2-3 hours just to get to work because they couldn't afford a car. To then, after 8 hours, get back on the bus to then travel back 2 to 3 hours back home yet again. And most people be like, well, that's 8 hours at work, 6 hours of time wasted on the bus. But if you think about it, especially in today's like time, like maybe 30 years ago, maybe you wouldn't have been able to. Maybe just with books would have been the only thing you could have used. But even today, 6 hours, that's enough to listen to an audiobook while you're on the bus. If you're just sitting there and your stop's like the last one, what's the big deal like with listening to an audiobook? We can do that now, right? So 3 hours there, you listen to half the audiobook, and then 3 hours back. Usually an audiobook is about 8 hours, so fine. Let's say 6 hours, you get 6 hours into an audiobook. Just in case, reading kind of gets you car sick or whatever on the bus, well, okay, go ahead and listen to audiobooks. And like I said, with Richest Man in Babylon, I know that one's on YouTube because that's how I first listened to and learned about that book because it's on YouTube. It's free, so you don't even have to pay for like what is it? The I used to use it all the time. The Audible, right? Like you don't even have to pay for Audible $15 a month, and you get like one token to use for the month. They have free videos that you can listen to on YouTube as well. So and different resources. So don't be afraid to go ahead and check them out. So now those 6 hours that you're using up for work that you could be using that time to get paid, well, you're technically investing in yourself, which is also good. Anyways, a little tangent on 6 hour bus rides, but it's just important to go ahead and create that income so you can slowly but surely, consistently build up your assets or your machines that make you money. Then from there, you want the second section. He says, when you come up short, let the pressure build and don't dip into your savings or investments. Use the pressure to inspire your financial genius to come up with new ways of making more money, and then pay your bills. You will have increased your ability to make more money as well as your financial intelligence. So this is something I think is a bit harder to sort of, I don't know if it's necessary teach or maybe think about, but it's like one of those, maybe you only had $1,000, but you had to spend it on, I don't know, let's say tuition, or you had to spend it on, I don't know, there was something you had to spend it on, right? $1,000, and that's all the money you have. But now you need to go out and spend $100 for food, or something else like that. Let's say you have another $100 expense coming up. Well, now you really have that sort of light under your butt of, oh crap, I have to figure out how I'm going to pay this $100 by the end of the week. Well, you can go ahead and try and look at maybe different things you have in your house. I don't know, like a computer maybe you never really use anymore, or some sort of something maybe you have in the living room you just never really use anymore. You can go ahead and try and sell it. And again, nowadays it's even easier to go ahead and make and flip things. So for example, you can also think about garage selling. It's something I personally like to do. Go, if you have 10 even to $100 and that's all the money you have. I know a lot of people have told me how they can flip that easily to $1,000, $2,000, but it takes patience and time, of course. But you can take that $100 and figure out, okay, well, once I'm done working my 8 hour shift after work, or maybe even on the weekends, take the time and go ahead and take that $100, go ahead and buy a couple things that you think you can really sell online, and then flip that. And now you've just created this sort of other revenue apart from your, from your job. You've created this extra additional income from this little side hustle. Now, because you had this light under your butt, you had to figure out sort of how to go ahead and make this sort of extra money to meet your expenses that you really, have to meet, just because, life is life. So I think with the second one, it is a bit harder because it teaches you, like, you have to really try and think and sort of think outside the box, even on how to come up with sort of answers for whatever it is in life that you have to pay for and purchase, sort of thing. So that one is a little more difficult, I will admit, but it's definitely doable. And again, especially in today's day and age, again, with books, and instead of wasting your money on books, like what, $15-$20 for like per book. I mean, even to this day, I get like a bunch of my books from thrift stores. It's like $3, plus you get sales and stuff. So like a lot of these books, I don't even pay, not even the discounted Amazon price of $15. I'll go to, let's say, Goodwill and purchase it for $1, $2. That helps lower your expenses. So it's also trying to be a little more savvy. What's that word? I forget the word, but Barbara Corcoran uses it all the time. But pretty much trying to be a little more aware of your expenses as well as your income. So that's pretty much how to pay yourself first, with keeping those two ideas in mind. Thank you. So let's see. So, and I'm even going to go ahead and quote the book as well. So let's see. We have, so many times I have gone into financial hot water and used my brain to create more income while staunchly defending the assets in my asset column. My bookkeeper has screamed and died for cover, but I was like a good soldier defending the four assets. So, and the big idea with this is because remember, when we first start, you want to go ahead and keep your expenses low and have your income as high as possible. And when you're starting off, of course, you're going to need some sort of job, even if it's minimum wage, because you have your expenses so low and you're being consistent, it'll grow over time. Then from there, you're slowly but surely investing into these assets. Remember, these machines that make you money. But once you've invested into those assets, you don't want to go ahead and take money out to go ahead and pay for some other expense. But what Robert Kiyosaki is pretty much saying is you want to go ahead and think outside the box and think of other ways that you can go ahead and generate money while not touching any of your assets. Now, of course, if part of your asset list is a savings, well then yeah, I guess go ahead and use your savings. But even then, if your savings is specific to this is my savings only to go ahead and eventually have upfront money for a house. Ideally, according to Robert Kiyosaki, you don't want to go ahead and touch that at all. So, of course, when you're starting off, maybe have like a nice little savings portfolio, whatever, where you save up a couple $100 just in case for a rainy day. And from there, just slowly but patiently go ahead and invest. You're building up those assets. And then when you get into any sort of hot water, the second section of getting into hot water and having to think about how to go ahead and invest, well, you have to go ahead and think outside the box. Well, I have my computer. I guess I'm going to have to go ahead and sell that and see if I can get a nice profit off of that. And then maybe once you get the money and you're able to pay for your things, maybe see if, okay, well, I had $1,000 computer. I really only need a $200 computer, right? Because you just use it for like light web surfing, and that's about it, right? So really taking a look at what it is you do have, keeping the cost as low as possible, and trying to think outside the box, I think is probably the hardest thing and hardest sort of concept from paying yourself first. Because I know when starting off, paying yourself first is, again, like, wait, how do I do that? Because I have all these expenses to pay for. I have rent to pay for. I have food to pay for. Right? But when starting off, again, you want to keep it as low as possible. Like, it's simply expenses and then your income. You want to keep it like this. You don't want to flip it the other way where you're having to spend more than you make, right? Again, think of yourself as a business. If you had a business that's spending more than the revenue it's making and coming in, it's going to be in the negatives and profits, right? Negative money. It's the same thing with you. You don't want to go ahead and put yourself in that negative spiral of money. You want to go ahead and think of it as positive, right? Positive cash flow. So you're making $10, but you only spend $1 because you're keeping your expenses super tight, super low, and you're increasing your revenue over time and using that extra $9 for this example to go ahead and acquire more. So eventually, instead of making $10, you're really making $11, but your time isn't going towards that second income that makes you that dollar. It's just the $10. And so eventually it's going to grow and spiral. And not to mention compound interest and things like that. And I know he was talking about also with the when you come up short, let the pressure build and don't dip into your savings or investments. Trying to get perhaps some sort of guidance or seeking counsel from like big advisors, right? And because their pretty much their job is to go ahead and advise people on what to do in certain situations. Now, I'm not just saying financial advice. Like, I'm just saying any expert within whatever field you're trying to do. So if you want to go ahead and buy a house, why not go ahead and lean on real estate investors and all these other people who have already done it and who actually have the experience and the knowledge. And you can go ahead and use them to learn from them and such. So that's also something to go ahead and take a look at. But anyway, so that's pretty much what I'll go ahead and take a look at today, discussing how to go ahead and pay yourself first. I know this concept, again, is just it gets a lot of upfront, like, oh, you can't do that because how do you pay yourself first and then not pay your expenses? Well, ideally with the first section, you're keeping your expenses low and your income's already pretty high comparatively to your expenses. So you don't even have to put yourself inside of that hot water. But if you do get into that hot water, according to the second section, try and think outside the box and figure out ways where, you know what, I need to raise $1,000. How do I go and raise $1,000? Because there's nothing like that nice light, under your butt to go and be like, oh crap, I have to really think like, okay, what can I sell? What can I go ahead and try to do? Maybe after your job, you go ahead and pick up a second part-time job and you make that extra, $100. Like maybe even work double shifts. I mean, I know I have family who have gone and they're like, you know what, I need to make it a little extra money to go ahead and pay for this car part or whatever. Like, go ahead and pick up a double shift. Like it is hard. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's part of why becoming rich is hard and becoming wealthy is hard. But it's like, how badly do you want it, or even why do you want it, right? Like those are things to also consider. So if you really want to get out of that sort of sticky situation, those are different ideas that you can go ahead and try to do. Again, garage sailing is a great idea. It's pretty fun to do too. Different things like that. I mean, even trading like baseball cards, selling lemonade stand, like at the lemonade stands. I saw these kids doing lemonade stands. Like it's all different ideas that help you generate money. And then also, I mean, I'm trying to also think of other ideas where you could go ahead and maybe generate some sort of other income. Although honestly, online, even today with today's digital age, there's so many ways you can go ahead and make money online. Check out like whatever local area you're in, like that city name .craigslist.com, or just Google Craigslist. They have like a free section as well. You can go ahead and perhaps find something that's free, like I don't know, a couch and see if you can try and sell that $20, right? Or I've seen them. They even sell like metal, different parts as well, like copper or silver. I've seen people just posting, oh, you know, curb pickup. If you can grab it, it's yours. And right there, even though again it might not be a lot, it might just be like a $20 couch. That's just slowly but surely building up your revenue over time, right? And I'm not saying this is going to be a what is that, a consistent thing, at least with that, but it's a start. It's better than not having any money and you have to pay off all this debt, right? So again, ideally you don't want to get yourself into that large of debt, but if you do have to go to sort of put yourself in that hot water, instead of touching the money that's within your assets that are within your stocks or real estate, whatever you do have, go ahead and try and figure out, okay, how can I go ahead and make that extra $1,000 online, locally, you know, different things like that, and just don't be afraid to think outside the box. So I hope you guys enjoyed checking out today's Money Talk Monday. Today's Money Talk Monday is episode number 6, discussing how to go ahead and pay yourself first. Please feel free to comment down below. Feel free to get back to me on maybe some other ideas you guys are able to come up and think about. I'm still trying to think about some of the concepts online. Like, I mean, I've seen some pretty crazy ones. It's like people set up stores and they go ahead and sell, and it's like that's crazy, but it's a great way to go ahead and make money. And of course, it does require some sort of upfront overhead. But I think so far my favorite one, especially when you have no money, is doing the Craigslist one, where it's just like free curbside pickup. Or if you have some minimum money, garage selling as well as Craigslist too. You can probably find things where people are just trying to make a quick buck and get rid of the thing because they just need to make those extra $5-10. You buy it for $10 and you can flip it for like 100 with the right patience as well. So it just depends on your situation. But those are anyways a couple of cool ideas. And start like, even if you're thinking, oh, those wouldn't work, I have done those, so they definitely work. It does depend on your situation and I guess perhaps where you live too. So just don't be afraid to go ahead and think of different ways to go ahead and make a little extra money when you got to go ahead and, but pay yourself first. But the main idea for Rich Dad Poor Dad's Pay Yourself First is to be consistent with paying yourself first. So it's not about necessarily, okay, if I didn't pay myself first last month, but then this month I'm going to pay myself first. No. It's just consistently paying yourself first no matter what. So even if you have that unexpected emergency, you then have to, that's when you're in the hot water situation, you have to figure it out. But consistently paying yourself first is really the key. Again, self-discipline. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's Money Talk Monday, episode 6. Taking a look at paying yourself first, a little insight into some self-discipline, and hopefully this translates also to maybe your career or just personal life as well. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed, and thanks for tuning in.